Hello everyone, this is your tutor Sarah Wanyeki. Welcome to this series of CSS where you will learn a comprehensive CSS course for beginners. You will cover lessons from basic CSS to advanced CSS. Throughout these lessons, I will mention the links being available in the description below. Before we get started, let us get the tools we need. I will be using Chrome browser in this course. So if you don't have it, download it and install it. After that, we are going to use Integrated Development Environment. That is our code editor. I will be using Visual Studio Code. If you don't have it, I have a tutorial on how to download and install it. Check it in the description below. The other thing we will need is the live server extension. As we continue, I will show you how to install the live server extension. Without further ado, let's get started learning CSS Day 1. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on screen, paper, or in other media. We are going to look at CSS syntax. The syntax of CSS defines how rules are structured to style a specific element or group of elements. Let us look at our CSS syntax. At this point, I'm going to assume that you have got everything downloaded and installed. I have Visual Studio Code open here. You may have a welcome page. Go ahead and close it. Create a folder in your machine. I've called mine CSS course. Inside the CSS course folder, I have another folder written Day 1, where our code will come in. Inside our Day 1 folder, I have another folder that has images that we are going to use in this lesson. Go ahead and create an index.html file and hit on enter. In this index.html file, we are going to write our HTML code. Start with the exclamation mark and then hit on tab. And in our body, we are going to have header 1 tag and write this is a heading, and also write a sample paragraph where we will use lorem. Just type lorem, hit on tab. For us to display our code to our browser, we need the live server extension. Come here in your Visual Studio Code and you'll find this tab written extensions. Click on it and in the search bar here, type live server. This is the live server. Go ahead and install it here. Once it is done, go back to your file or your Explorer tab, click on it, and then down here on the Visual Studio Code, you will see it is written Go Live. Click on it for you to go live. Your page will now be displayed in your browser. We are going to look at the CSS styling file. These are the 3 ways that we can insert CSS in our HTML file. The first one is the external CSS. With an external style sheet, you can change the look of an entire website by changing just one file. In the internal CSS, an internal style sheet may be used if one single HTML page has a unique style. The internal style is defined inside the style element inside the head section. And then we have the third one, that is inline CSS. Inline styles are defined within the style attribute of the relevant element. Let us look at what we mean. We will begin with the internal CSS. The internal CSS comes in between the head element. Before you close the head element, we start with the style element, and inside our style element, we can go ahead and style our background page, we can write body, open and close curly braces, and then you can write background. We give it a background color, and let us give it background color gray. Hit on enter, and we can change our text color, say color to white. Our text color changes to white. This is what we call the internal styling. The other one we are going to look at is the inline styling. Inline styles are defined within the style attribute. Like in our header one here, let us go ahead and style our header one and write style. We will style it and give it color blue. A text align our text, and let us align it to the center. Now, this is what we call the inline styling. The inline CSS styling is that you style your CSS inside the element or within the HTML element. The best method of using the style CSS is by using the external CSS. And how to add the external CSS? We are going to add our external CSS by coming here and create another folder and call it CSS. Hit on enter. Inside the style.css, create a file and name it style.css. This style that we have here, we are going to cut, and then we are going to delete this style element and insert our style here, and we go back to our HTML page. Before we close the head tag, we are going to link our CSS file with our HTML file. We are going to use, say, link rel, which means the relationship, and we are going to say equals to style sheet, and then we need to close it here. Style sheet href, which gives us the URL href. In our folder, we begin by our folder, which is CSS, and then backslash, and then we select our file. Inside the folder, inside the CSS folder, we have style.css file. Click on it, and now we have linked our style sheet with our HTML file, and you can see that our browser has now changed and our settings are the same. Our styling is the same as what we were using before. What we are going to look at next is CSS syntax. The syntax of CSS define how rules are structured to style a specific element or group of elements. What we have is the selector and then the declaration. The declaration comes in between the open and the closing curly braces. You can have as many declarations in between the open and the closing curly braces. This is the syntax that you use when we are styling using CSS. Number one is that we have the selector, and then we have the open and closing curly braces. And inside here, we now have the declaration where we have the property and the value. When we have multiple declarations, we separate them by the semicolon, okay? And when we are using the declaration, the property is then followed by a value, where in between the property and the value, we have a full column. The basic CSS selectors. Number one is the element selector. The CSS element selector selects HTML elements based on the element name. Like now here we had body, we have header one, and we have paragraph. These are the element selector. Another one we have is the ID selector. In our HTML code, we can go ahead and give our paragraph an ID. We can say paragraph, and then we give it ID and call it para1. We can also have another paragraph here. Our sample text will just be lorem. With this ID selector, we are going to style this paragraph, that is paragraph 1, that we've named it para1. We go to our style.css file. To select an element with a specific ID, we write a hash character followed by the ID of the element. We called ours para1. We can copy, Control V, and paste it here. Then open and close curly braces. And we can now write text align to the center. We can give it a different color and give it color. Let us give it color white. Let us change this para1 so that you're able to see hello world. So you are able to see the effect that it is now centered and it is color white. The other selector we can look at is the class selector. The class selector selects HTML elements with a specific class attribute. To select elements with a specific class attribute, we write a period character followed by the class name. In our second paragraph, we are going to give it a class, and we are going to give it a class and name it center. Writing a class, we write a period character followed by our name, which we called it center, open and close curly braces. And now we are going to give it, let's say, text align center. This is our second paragraph. We've text aligned it to center, and then we can change the color to beige. I don't know if it's going to be visible. To beige or yellow. Let's try yellow. Yellow, like that. Okay. Let's talk about the CSS background image. This property specifies an image to use as the background of an element. By default, the image is repeated, so it covers the entire element. For us to insert background image in our page, in our body element, we are going to write background image, and then we are going to write URL, and we begin with backslash. Now we want to find our image, which is going to be inside our images folder. We are going to use that image, BG Desert. So backslash, and then we write images, and then backslash, and then select BG Desert. Then that's how we insert our background image. But you can see this is not a good way of writing, because our text, they are not visible enough. All right, you can hardly read what is written in it. The other thing we are going to look at is what we call CSS borders. The CSS border properties allow you to specify the style, the width, and color of an element's border. And we are going to look at this example. We are going to comment on our body element, and also I'll also comment on this and our style. Okay, now inside our body, I'm going to have a header too, and this one we are going to say we are learning about the border style property, and the paragraph that says this property specifies what kind of border display. This property specifies what kind of border to display. We are going to have a paragraph. We are going to have a dotted border. We are going to have another paragraph and say a solid border. We are going to style these paragraphs so that we can see the style property. We'll come here and say p dot dotted border style there equals to dotted. That is a dotted property. The next one we are going to have is the solid border style. That is solid. We're going to copy, come here and say p dot dashed. We say border style equals to what? To dashed. And we have our dashed border. Go ahead and style all the paragraphs with their classes like p dot dotted. The last one is p dot mix, and say border style is dotted, dashed, solid, and double. Now the last one, you can see that it has all the borders mixed up. Like now we have this one, the dotted. On the top is both dotted and then dashed and then solid and double borders. We've come to the end of our tutorial today. If you found this tutorial to be helpful, you can subscribe, like, comment, and also you can share this video with your friends. And I'll see you in the next video.